Okay. Morning, Delta. How's it going? Goodish. That's not good. It's better than bad. What a rolling geek. Let's not risk off with that. Wondering when my group migrates off Jira. Huh. Migrates off Jira. To what platform? I mean, I've seen move to barely using Jira, which is what I'm doing now. But migrating away from Jira, I've not even seen many alternatives to Jira. I think I managed to get a workaround for the issue I was given yesterday. About to release, didn't manage to get it done though. Same day though. One day, considering it's been around for months, isn't going to hurt anything. Rushing a fix out doesn't help anybody either. So that's where you're going to have a little bit of strength in the fact that you are the expert. You might not feel it at times, but you are the expert. You are the one that says, hey, this is ready. So if someone pushes you for it, you say, hey, do you want to do it? Do you want to take the responsibility, or do you want me to make sure it's good and we'll fix the problem? Yeah, well, thought maybe Trello could work. I mean, Trello is no Jira replacement. There's a lot of plugins and stuff for Trello, or add-ons, or whatever they are, that you can kind of add in some features. If you're just looking for tracking work, yeah, Trello works. Was the Kanban board very well? The sprint board, not as effective. Absolutely. Yeah. I cannot win with this chair today. The mat's in a weird place, so I keep rolling to one side. The camera's not on, so I'm good. That sounds all good. Have you tweaked? No, I haven't changed anything really yet. I feel a bit better. I'm still stuffy, but yeah. Anyhow, this won't come from me anyways. This is the grumpy thing. Yeah. The problem is though that, and again, as we've kind of identified over many months of talking about this, tools like Jira aren't for the developer. They're not. These tools, and that's kind of why my focus has shifted, right? This is not for a developer. This is for management. This is for visibility. All the features I'm focused on are all about the people beyond the developers in the company, right? Toxic in what way? It enables toxic behavior. You mean toxic like cover your butt sort of behavior? Blame culture. Yeah. Human beings will do that without software as well, right? That's a cultural thing as much as it is a tooling thing. The tooling helps. The tooling helps enable the culture. And the problem is though that if you're working in an environment of where there's no trust, it's hard to get over that, no matter which way you look at it. That's a big problem. Yeah. It's the same thing as Rambling Geek, right? It's the business has to trust the expert, and the expert is you. Whether you consider yourself an expert or not, or whether you consider yourself fully qualified to make a decision is not really the problem. You are still the expert. You are the person who says, this is how hard this is, and this is how long this will take. Well, that's the issue, right? The reality is you can't prevent people higher up in the organization from interfering. But that's where building relationships of trust comes in. It's the one thing I miss about my last job is that there was trust there. There was the ability for me to turn around and say, no, we are not doing that because that will risk the software. And I had to give and take a bit. It's also a small business, so we have to be flexible. But there's a limit, right? You still got to make sure that people are aware of the cost of what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's a small business or not. A small business is still going to suffer if you make the bad choices. And if you let people who are not developers make the choices for you, trust is probably the last guy out. Did you just say, I can't be agile, I have to be flexible? No, not quite. I get the reality of being slightly flexible. What I'm saying is, sometimes you have to explain the situation and acknowledge where the cost is. Flexible will always hurt you worse, because if you are flexible, the reality is that the business will expect you to keep giving, right? So it will keep costing, because that flexibility makes you a pushover, and it's something you've got to be. You can't just give 1 minute and then stop giving, but in the same, you've got to be you got to figure out a way to communicate to the business without being technical, the challenges of what you're doing and why it's bad. Which again is kind of like the whole pointing process is meant to do is kind of give people options. So you lay out, here's the things that we can do for you. Here's the cost of these things. Which ones do you want? Right? And being able to represent that cost to the business in clear and understandable ways is, the problem is when you do that sort of stuff, you can't do it knee-jerk. You have to do it with reality in mind, because if you do it in a knee-jerk reaction and then you struggle to deliver, you're going to make things worse for yourself. So you've got to make sure that whatever you offer is realistic, it is actually attainable, and you're not going to be breaking your back trying to get it done. They want pointing at this point. The other side wanting something is enough for me to not do it. Well, sounds like you've got into a situation where you feel like it's a them and us sort of situation. It might be time to consider your alternatives. Because you're not going to make that any better if there is sides. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're breaking down those boundaries and you're being like, yeah, unreasonable people exist in the business, but it's more making the business aware of those people as well. Okay. Technical story time. SG and eventing. 21st, 12th. Hi, so how you doing? Good day. When I first started this job, I gave the example to the MD. He likes Lego. Imagine having a half-built 5,000-piece Lego set. You're asked to go into the middle, change the layout, and not break anything, and leave it as you found it, and you have no manual. That's a pretty solid analogy, actually. That actually might be a better analogy than any of the house building analogies I've ever heard. Because you only have to have played with Lego to understand how difficult that actually is. Nice. That's worth sharing, yeah. That's exactly what you need to do, right? That's exactly why you've worked in environments where you've had to interact with people, right? A lot of developers don't interact with people. They go through college or they go through whatever they go through and they just get stuck in a room and they get to code, right? And then all of a sudden you're in a business environment where people have got used to treating you like a resource, right? People are used to treating you like, hey, go off and do this, please. They don't expect people to be pushing back because they've just got used to this. Hey, write this code, write this code, write this code. And there's a lot of developers that are willing to do that. And then they set a deadline. And this is the problem, right? We need to be in a world where we are able to push back. We're able to explain the difficulties. At a developer level, it's very simple what you do. You do not merge broken code. That is really the law. By the way, what happened to Kafka? Is it broken? We started using Rabbit. No. We're not replacing Kafka. We're supplementing. I'm just going to write this note up so I've got a branch to make. Oh, I know when it's broken. And I've got to remember that I'm not on camera, so you can't see me just looking to the side. My apologies. T54. Okay. Okay. Okay, I think it is. We developed all kinds of methods to get out of it, or you really have to loads of checks to make sure it works. Unit testing, PR reviews, and all those are as good as how they're developed. No guarantee, but each layer adds a layer of certainty. Programming, yes. Okay. So to answer the question about Kafka, no, I'm not getting rid of Kafka. I am supplementing Kafka with MassTransit. 1 second. Appreciate that. So far I've been using Kafka to produce data to other systems, right? So Kafka is used for promoting planning items to the rest of the system, tickets, tenant management, etc. And that's great, and I like the way I'm using it. But now I have a need to say, even within a service or within a component, that things are happening. Obviously, I always intended MassTransit for this component, where we kind of put a HTTP client in an internal API temporarily. But now I have a greater need for the messaging. I could use Kafka. I could just use Kafka to do this thing, create more consumers, publish more things. But I have two use cases here. This one, where I'm talking from the tickets to the planning items, is a command, right? It is essentially a command. Having the API there is just a temporary fix. This command should tell the ticket system knows the planning system exists. It's not like they're completely locked off from each other, right? But we do know that this promotion happens from tickets to planning. And that is a command. That is here's a created planning item from this ticket, right? Now we have another scenario where we have view. When things happen in here, the UI might need to know, right? And what I've done is I've started to look at GraphQL subscriptions. So if we run this up, afternoon, Mr. Jones. Let's see. So when we go to planning items view here, right, I want to have the ability to push changes to the client, right? I don't want to have the client constantly polling the server. So what happens here is the planning items right now use the NGRX signal store, and from here the what happens is I literally just set a flag to say it's current. So right now this will be marked as current because it's pulled everything down and everything's good. What I could do is when I add a new item, I could mark it as not current. But the problem is, if I do that, then it will use the GraphQL cache. And also, that item may not have made it back around yet by the time I do that. So it might take a few seconds. So what happens is that item disappears off this list until I come back and query it again. So what I've done is I've flagged this as current. And if it's current, it won't try and ask GraphQL for anything. What I use GraphQL subscriptions so that when an event happens over here, so when something changes, an event will publish in MassTransit, an actual publish, then this will get notified. So there'll be a listener in here for that event, and it will use a subscription, which we'll put back in afterwards for notification. And that will tell the client, hey, so two things, there'll be the two stores. One store will be for notifications, so it'll prop up and say, hey, a new item's been assigned to you. And that's the goal. If you're not the sender, right? If you're not the creator and it's been assigned to you, then you'll be notified, hey, it's been assigned to you. But secondly, this will be notified that things have changed, and then it should reload itself. Even if it doesn't really pertain to you, it'll still reload itself. And that's kind of the goal right now, to get those notifications in there. And that gets me moving forward with the whole notifications piece, because that is a very big piece of the design. So yes, I could use Kafka, but I'm going to use a distinct technology for this purpose to try and avoid that overlap and avoid blurring the lines between Kafka and MassTransit. Or rather, avoid blurring the lines between I'm using Kafka for data integration and how I'm using Kafka for eventing. So having two separate Agile technologies does then mean that if I need to say, hey, I need to notify another piece of this event, it's clear what technology, it's clear what pattern I use, versus, hey, this data needs to be to be kind of published. Oh, that's a Kafka concern. And there we go. So there's still some questions I have over the queues and right. Yeah, I've still got a bit of learning to do. Right. Hi, Temptic. How you doing? I'm doing better every day. Still not 100%, which after a week and a half is kind of annoying, but sound way better compared to yesterday. Yeah, it's getting better every day, but it's frustrating. So what I need to do here is I need to learn a little bit about so I'm going to use RabbitMQ right now. There's no point. I don't want to use Kafka because it's not really what it's intended for, and that will then again blur the lines. I don't want to use SQLDB as a transport because again it just complicates things. Ultimately, depending on where I land, I may end up using Azure Service Bus or Amazon SQS. But Rabbit right now is the best option I have. Morning, Dr. Dynamite. How you doing? Well, good afternoon. Still morning for you, right? 11:30. I forget about the 4 hours right now. If I was feeling better, I would probably read this out loud, but I'm kind of reading it just to try and understand a little bit about what I'm setting up here. So, for reference, I am reading up on this. Oh dear. Okay. So, how the body of the message says rabbit MQ is rabbit MQ management. Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So, I've obviously played with this for the last couple of days. Where are you? So I've been messing around with this getting started piece. And I'm trying to figure out I can't answer that, tempting. I haven't played with you. Not really. So we have exchanges and we have queues. We have topics based upon the routing. So this is the first type. I want to publish, right? A publish is a broadcast. Both will create two exchange bindings. One between the exchange name, input queue, and a second between the exchange name matching the message type. So, sorry for being quiet. I can't read it out loud. Otherwise, I'm just going to start struggling. The problem is they go between, the documentation goes between publish here and send here, which are very different actions. With no explanation of why. Right? So I'm publishing here. If I don't do that, right? I don't do that. What will happen is I should get all the messages. Oh. No endpoint convention. Oh, because it's a send. If I do publish. There you go. And that's by default contracts getting started. That's the exchange. Let's start that up again, see if it changes anything here. Okay, getting started is the queue. So that's that there. And that's the default namespace of this that's pulling. So publishing I'm fine with. So my first use case is when a message comes in here, right? When I update planning item, once I've received the planning item, I want to publish an event to say the planning item was received or the planning item was updated, whatever I want to publish. I want this to listen to that, right? Yes, this is an API, but I want it to listen to it because then it's going to hook in and publish a subscription message to the to GraphQL. So that's use case one. So let's just go and also if this piece is down, if the view piece is not available, and this happens, and this is up, I don't necessarily need those events to catch up. So when the service comes up, it doesn't need to say, oh, well, I've got a lot of events to publish, I'll publish them. Or does it? Because one of the things I did think I saw was if I start the publisher, see, this is durable. Which technically means it saves to disk. Right, so that's not running. Now let's stop the publisher. Now let's start the subscriber. That catches all those messages. So if the view service was down and using durable messaging, what would have to happen is there a what am I after here? Can't think of the word, so I'm kind of looking for an inspiration. What's the word? Dedupe. It's a name for it. So basically, if I receive the event 10 times in the time while the view is off, I don't want to publish 10 events to say, hey, this changed. Or do I? Yeah, let's not worry about that right now. Let's worry about getting this in. Okay, so I'm going to move this piece over here. This piece here. What does this look like? Well, the publisher first. think for right now. Ooh. Yeah, that's a problem. Kind of want an abstraction here. But again, this is where the challenge comes in, because I'm going to be talking about publishers and the subscribers and consumers in different technologies. Let me messaging. So here I have the configuration, right, for the Kafka configuration. I want something similar here. The difference is, obviously, there's going to be different configurations here. It's not nullable. That's fine for now. Then we need a that's going to have a public MQ. So that this looks like oh no. That's what I want that to look like. We'll get more complicated because we're going to have to configure the endpoints and allow configuration of names, etc. there for queues. I expect that to look a lot like this, because this worked pretty well for the Kafka piece. This also, by the way, by doing it this way, a typo will actually prevent this from building. So it actually works pretty well from a enforcement perspective. So I'm pretty happy with the way that works. Okay, so again, source messaging. So I'm not trying to create abstractions around abstractions here. I'm just trying to create reusable, organized code. See, we have an event publisher. What's that going to be? So that's in shared contracts, right? Or shared kernel as such. So I have an iDomain event, I have an iEvent publisher, I have an integration event, which is what Kafka publishes. I can't put MassTransit directly in here. That would be bad. So I have to abstract it. Mainly because it is an infrastructure concern, right? It is a, how do I do the thing, not do a thing? So what is this? It's not an event publisher. It's not a notification publisher, because that's not what I'm doing here. Oh, it is what I'm doing specifically here, but it's not what I'm doing in general. So what is this name? Naming. This is not easy. So this is intended for intra and inter service or component communication, right? Kafka is intended for data publishing, so it is, but because of the terminology, they're referred to as events. But that might be sending commands as well as let's go like that for right a second. Can let that for right a second. It's not the best way to do this, by far. I'm going to take a quick break. I'll be right back. Okay, my apologies for that. I need to get a cup of tea, and I need to stand as well. So forget the desk stands, and it will make breathing much easier. Okay, so what I need to do here is not overthink this too much and try and get a working implementation in. If I start thinking about what might be, what could be, what possible outcomes I might, have, I'm going to get stuck. Now this isn't a technology I'm going to have to take lightly, right? I'm going to have to learn a lot more about this component as I go. I think it is the right tool, so I'm going to commit to using it. But it's just going to come with the added cost of increased difficulty at points when I don't understand or I'm struggling to diagnose issues. But overall, one of the things I want to focus on is kind of the auditing of the system, I suppose. So I just need to keep that in mind as I go forward, that I'm going to add in some layers of information gathering when I get to things like open telemetry, etc. Which I did see there was a few videos on this last week or so. Okay, so I'll stop this running actually before that becomes a problem. So I'm going to introduce iMessage Bus right now, and that is so that I can do send as well. Right. So I've abstracted an abstraction, which is not always the best thing to do, but it does avoid me having knowledge of MassTransit in here. So now let's create our publisher. So with a Kafka publisher, yeah. So let's do MassTransit. Let's see how it feels. iMessage Bus. Now I think interesting. MassTransit itself exposes iBus as an interface, so that's not going to be a challenge. In actuality, okay. So here is the MassTransit. We'll have to figure out how to. Okay. Now, bring up my. Essentially, that's enough. Can you specify generic? Can you specify that? Yes, you can. What works for me? I'm gonna leave this generality for right this second because I'm not going to need the send for right this second. That'll be a separate action to go back and do the ticket to planning item promotion. Okay, so what did I do here? I did that, set that. How do I do this now? iBus. I'm trying to decide how much of the configuration I pull through. So, you look at this. Right. This is the MassTransit configuration, right? So I'm going to inject this. Now, I'm not going to try and hide away from the fact that I'm using MassTransit, but what I want to do is get this configuration to use my known. Again, I'm going to need to repeat this time and time again, right? As I add more projects, this isn't going to get any less complicated. And if I have to keep copying and pasting this entire chunk, and this is just the beginning, right? Obviously, once I understand things like those the exchanges, the queues, etc., a little bit better, how they configure the endpoints for each type, that configuration is all going to land in there, and then all going to need to be done. And if I have copied and pasted this to 3 or 4 projects already, and I have to go back and change things, then that's going to be costly. So as much as I don't want to necessarily wrap this configuration, I think I need to for my own project. So let's go over here. Challenge is extensions. Public static. Okay, so we're going to do add I'm trying to avoid just bypassing theirs. Let's keep trying. Hey, Judicus, how you doing? So let's just do that. Public. I know the silly hours things again. Too hot. What is too hot for you? 76. Okay. So it's 76. So but it's right in your face. Okay. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I got you. You just gotta wait for it to get out of the way. Okay. I don't think this is what I want to do. This might be more difficult wrapping MassTransit than it is. Going well overall. Just trying to kind of figure out how to get the configuration all wrapped up. I'm just thinking it might be more difficult. So I want to do, obviously I'm going to keep needing to do these sorts of things. And obviously as I get to the message queues and things like that, I want to wrap them in my configuration. But I just want to make that easier. And again, I don't want to have the application know that it's using MassTransit. Right, I do want the abstraction there. So the application, the way this would work would be the application, when it gets the planning item here, it's going to inject a iMessage bus. And it's going to do, new, right. This is going to do that sort of thing. But then it doesn't know about MassTransit, it just knows about message bus. And then this knows about MassTransit specifically and binds message bus. This is basically services that add. I can't do that because I can't use mediator here. Because this consumer consumes the Kafka piece, right? This application needs to publish an event that this picks up. So mediator's not involved at this point, unfortunately. So mediator would work if the view was invoking this, right? But the view's not. This is invoking this application in this case. I need to publish an event that other things can respond to. So it's intra component messaging, which I don't have right now, essentially, right? Because the way the the way the mediator events work, this kind of listens to its own events, right? If I use mediator style, and that's clear in here, right? So if I use mediator events, these work here. Again, I don't want to use Kafka here. Because I have two scenarios. I have the, hey, this happened, and I want that to be an event that is very clear. And also, hey, do this. I know I need MassTransit in two ways. So it adds some complication because now I'm using different messaging. But I have spent days worrying about this. Weeks, actually, worrying about this. Whether I budget into an existing piece or I try and make it work. It is not easy. What? Oh, stupid restream. Oh. So if you're on YouTube, the messages are meant to show on the bubbles and also show in my restream chat. But my restream chat has not indicated any YouTube messages. So I apologize. Cody Craftsman and Bobby Dennis. So apologies. I do not see your messages at all in the stream chat. Ridiculous. So my sincere apologies there, if you are still around. Okay. Well, lesson learned. So this is how I want to use it, right? So now the question is, right, obviously I can do that, but I kind of want to wrap up the MassTransit configuration because I'm going to be doing this in multiple projects. I want the consistency. I want to be able to pull from my configuration. So again, I'm going to need add Singleton MassTransit configuration. That works. Did I ever watch Hackers at some point? Last night I was watching somebody while working and I got the fans. That's funny because I've been watching Elementary, which has Johnny Lee Miller in it. It's made me want to watch Hackers. I don't use the iOptions interface. Because I don't do it normally. Configure. Oh, because then I have to inject iOptions, don't I? Yeah. I hate doing that. That's why I don't do that. Because then I end up injecting iOptions. Because then you end up with iOptions, configuration here. Then you have to check then you have to get its value and all that sort of mess. So yeah, that's why. What? How did I just remove a dependency? What? What? How did... Let's move that in there for now. Let's leave that one. Doesn't need to be laid out the same way. Canny, thank you very much for sub. I appreciate it. Coming in with a bang. How are you all? I'm doing better. I'm getting better. Every day is a little easier. Now on day 9 or whatever it is. Okay, so that's that. So yeah, this is just my kind of preferred way of doing getting configuration, because I can inject the object and I can just use it. Did you hear that MS is adding an inventing abstraction to .NET 9, kind of like MassTransit? No. Why? Thank you, Ian. Appreciate it. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Defaults, good morning. If anyone's got a link, I'd appreciate it. No, don't do that. No. Oh. Okay, I'll watch that later. So it's funny that, like, I was looking, obviously I'm looking at MassTransit. Good morning, Mr. Anhol, by the way. I was looking at, obviously I've been looking at MassTransit, and they've got a mediator implementation. And I'm like, do I, okay, thank you. the very thing I'm trying to avoid is trying to use too many technologies, right? But realizing that I need the right tool for the right job. But I clearly could go and use something like MassTransit and then use MassTransit's mediator. So then I'm only ever using MassTransit when I'm using messaging of that form, because it's got pretty much all the same features as mediator. But if Microsoft starts to introduce that functionality, whether they're being opinionated about that sort of stuff as well. Like, I don't get why they need to do that. Like, I get that these libraries are always easy to discover, but putting them as core features of the actual framework, yeah, I disagree with it. So what I'm trying to think about here, by the way, is how to best configure this. Obviously, I'm not trying to shy away from the fact that I've got using MassTransit, right? And I'm going to have to do that configuration. And what I want to do is make that configuration repeatable and be able to inject my MassTransit configuration component in there so that I don't have to keep repeating that. I think it's more for their Azure Functions SDK. Their reasoning seems to be that most enterprise devs don't want to use third party. Oh. So now, I think it's a bad direction for the marquee drama, scared enterprise. I think it's a bad direction where we're kind of going. Microsoft has spent years pivoting to open source and trusting open source. Is it an abstraction or is it an implementation, though? If it's an abstraction, I mean, I'll have to watch the video, obviously. If it's an abstraction and there's an I sender or whatever in there in there, then that's fine. But if there's an actual implementation, it's actual. I just think it's kind of like Microsoft pivoting back to old Microsoft, like more solutions based. Why not spend more effort on like supporting those open source libraries that do it better, do it with actual? Because Microsoft is developing it. I mean, I don't know, Microsoft's not exactly a naive little company, right? But they're developing it in a vacuum. Whereas people like Jimmy Bogard and the people who develop Mediator and Chris Patterson, I think it is, that develops MassTransit, etc. And the company develops End Service Bus. They're developing those things in actual use cases. They're developing it because they're actually in enterprise at the time. So they're developing the features based upon their needs. And and listening to feedback from actual developers developing them. Like logging in DI, I kind of get. They are fundamental components of the architecture. You can still use different DI frameworks, you just don't anymore. The logging, yeah. Have you worked in Azure Functions? Those are hard to use sandbox and has next to no enhancements. I feel like this is a heavy push from them. It's funny because I was looking at Azure Functions the other day. I was gonna ask Deflux for some time because he's pretty knowledgeable, but I've been sick since, so I want to try and build something with Azure Functions to see if I can understand more about how you might develop them and work with them. Because again, the whole cloud thing is a massive blind spot. Yeah, I think they should listen to the open source community and bring in ideas like Wolverine as a paid option. I think we should get .NET 9 Pro plus $59.99. Yeah. Thank you, Apex. Good morning, by the way. Sorry, I couldn't mute before I coughed then. Well, plus, I feel like when I was a kid, went to Disneyland, Florida, and you left the park and all the roads there was knockoff shops selling Disney products, and Disney's like, there's a lot of money to be made. So they in-housed all of it, and now all those roads look like abandoned business spaces. Yeah. Okay, so we're pretty much aligned with. Yeah. Okay. I mean, considering what we've talked about, I mean, if you've been in the stream before, we've talked about Jeremy Miller. Like, this guy is a extremely clever guy with a lot of experience. And he's gone contrary to a lot of these designs over many years. You just have to look at his JasperFX platform stuff to see how much he is against just following along. What I'm looking for here is certain people, right? I'm looking for certain opinions coming through. I mean, it's clearly controversial. This guy, if I remember correctly, is extremely good when it comes to tasks and threads, etc. Right, that's what they're saying. Like, the Microsoft default implementation became the implementation, so we don't question it now because Microsoft have tuned it so much. There's really no need for another DI framework. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can. It's actually, again, that whole, should you even use DI? That's kind of the point, right? The point was made. Well, hold on. Microsoft introduced a default DI implementation to go with their interface, and then everyone just uses their interface now, and it uses their abstractions. They don't expand upon that because it's become the de facto way. I'll have to read through that because it is that could change things quite substantially. Right, but I'm doing the exact. I'm the service collection stuff is that. All I'm doing is using the default, the built-in stuff, right? So I'm not using any other frameworks for DI. Anyway, let's see if we can figure out this before the end of the stream. But as always, if anyone in the stream is watching and has any opinions or thoughts, etc., that they want to continue on off stream of this, if they find more information, please drop it in the Discord. This sort of stuff is definitely worth understanding. And think about it, right? I'm developing this platform, right? I'm not going to get this done before November, right? When .NET 9 releases. If they come out and they have changed the way things work and they've changed interfaces, then I should rightfully consider where the wind is changing. Right? Is there a change to using their built-in interfaces? Is there a benefit? Because if I don't follow that path and I go contrary to that, then I could have a massive refactoring effort down the line. So it's something that directly impacts me, even if it's only as a thought. No, I appreciate it, Gina, because I really do. And it might seem like over, I don't know how to put it, overly dramatic to say, oh, it will affect me. But it does. I mean, if I'm building this platform and November comes around, they release all these new interfaces, etc. I want to update to .NET 9, right? I don't want to stay on .NET 8 if I'm still in the development phase of my project, because it would be silly to stay back a version, right? It's not something I should do. I'm not going to be close to a full release by November, so that is the case. But I still have to consider the impact it makes on my future. And if people do start to move towards that, or they do make it so that it's really simple to integrate with Azure Service Bus, etc., and it's just the way to do things, then I would be silly not to consider it. But that means a massive amount of work. So to keep an eye on that is very important for me. And again, like the people in the chats, in the comments there are saying, you know, they did this with DI, they did this with logging, etc. Right? Right, but those features are not in that preview to a point where they are mature enough to even use. So it right now, it's an epic they're working on, right? They started it in January, so this is the sort of thing that could get so big that they back it off until 10. Yeah, and it's not part of the code base; it's literally the whole thing for So live 24-hour stream. If I manage a 24-hour stream, I'd best get hundreds of subs because it's the only way I'm staying awake. Developing something for 24 hours would be brutal at this point. Okay, so let's see if I can get... So what I'm trying to avoid is I don't want to have to paste that into every single project I do, because again, what I need here is... Instruction unclear, sending 200 subway subs to DVD's house. Yeah, no more bots. This takes configure, does not take provider. So there's no, that's an add. I'm not sure I could eat that much Subway workflows and data. I've got a feeling that .NET 9 might turn out to be one of those releases that is overly ambitious and is less accomplished than it actually set out to be for the way things are going so far. So what I've got to do is avoid because this doesn't give me... What is this? Plus... I mean, it's a good one to publish weird stuff since it's not the LTS one. Right, so to that point, right, if they do release the event bus stuff in .NET 9, then in theory what I could say is I'm not going to prepare a .NET 9 build of my application and then a .NET 8 build, then prepare for .NET 10 when they've matured some of those APIs. So once .NET 10 starts to release, start to build a version around .NET 10. Reduce message size by changing the serialization type. Huh. What? Caddy, thank you for the gift sub. Oh, Deflux not even a sub. Thank you very much, Caddy. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So again, this is the sort of stuff as I get more familiar. Once you start taking on a technology, especially like this size, you have to start becoming a little bit. You have to start maturing your own abilities with it. So I'm going to hit some growing pains, that's for certain. It's better than trying to use Kafka in a kind of tri-purpose way, right? Because for any developers coming onto this project for the future of the development, right, if there's very distinct and clear ways of doing things, then it's easier to go with them and identify problems from them than it is to say, okay, well, I'm using Kafka for everything. So, you know, let's kind of shoehorn this in, and then it'll kind of work because Kafka is everything. But then I've got all these interfaces and I've got all these messages flowing around, but I don't have any. There's no consistency, or there's no clear definition between two things. So then abuse can happen. So at least using MassTransit, I've got a very distinct messaging. So if I'm messaging service to service within a component, I use MassTransit. If I'm using a service to service intercomponent, I'm using MassTransit. If I'm using broadcast of data, I'm using Kafka. So if anything needs to be broadcast to the entire system, I'm using Kafka rather than it's an event I need to react to in some way, shape, or form. But that's a different. Again, I can clearly bucket these technologies. But we have to get better at using them. So I haven't achieved very much on this stream, that's for certain. My apologies if that cough came across. I mean, you can still use Kafka as a transport for MassTransit if you don't want to add another actual service like RabbitMQ. I have contemplated it. I'm going to stick with RabbitMQ now, so that there's that clear distinction. As I get more comfortable with how it's working, that might be an option, especially as I go on to look at deployment, because cost-wise, that would be a massive impact, right? If I can use one technology for both communications. What I'm going to figure out is here. How do I do this? The way this is being built makes this extremely difficult to do now. Yeah, that's not what I want. Let's see what happens. Let's add RabbitMQ in here. What happens is I delete this library and get rid of it, and start again. So when I do using RabbitMQ here, I get a context and a configuration, right? Context. Ah, there we go. Okay. Mac had to take a walk with the dog. Nice. Dog walks are good. So again, configuration dot RabbitMQ.host. That still doesn't matter. Configuration dot RabbitMQ.virtualhost. And then we've got all these configurations. So the beauty of Kafka is that I have kind of it's a dictionary configuration. So I can literally just write the dictionary in the configuration file and then just say, hey, Kafka, here it is. Confluent did experiment with using with using a configuration object, but then they backed it out and just went back to the dictionary version. Configure, not configure. And it's this part that's going to be the part I want to do. Because this is great for now, but it doesn't work for everything. And I'm going to have to be able to configure the endpoints properly. I'm going to be able to have to tweak things, set things per service, right? So having this in here doesn't help me. So as much as I don't want to do it, that part lives in here now, right? So an ad break is about to start in about a minute. I've got to finish the stream as well. So I think this is the right direction, right? I think this is the best path for me to move forward with this application. So the goal is to get MassTransit in here so that when this happens here, right, I can listen to it here and then I can get an update on the UI. So that is my primary goal for the next couple of days. Hopefully I get some development time today to actually work on this, make a little bit more progress, because I don't like just doing it on the stream, right? Especially this stuff. But then when that's working and that's flowing through, I can then experiment with not experiment, I can replace this internal piece, get rid of this API, create a consumer on this end, and have this application component actually do the promotion. So at that point, it doesn't need to be internal because it can actually be something within the application. Yeah, water drink water. I'm still going to stick to Mondays and Tuesdays. So we'll do water drink water on Monday. So I apologize. I know that you've got some stuff pending there. I know there's stuff to review. Hopefully that by then as well, I'll sound better. I'll feel better. And that'll be a little easier. But yeah, I think for now, I'll try and finish this up this week. Because no, I won't do anything on Drink Water over the weekend. If I do anything, it'll be this over the weekend. I may stream. But the goal is very much to get to the point where the eventing is working, so I can see notifications and I can actually update the store. And when that's working, then I can move to the next phase, which is starting to navigate through these items, start to add the components, start talking about storage. Also be considering what it means to do the management of the system as well. So building an entire management system around this so that I can manage, so I can log in and say, hey, these are the tenants, delete the tenant, update the tenant, etc. It's so many different things. So, but that's why I built the UI, to try and trigger those. Here's what I need. Here's what I want to see. Sort of plans. But yeah, we'll get GraphQL in there, and this sort of stuff is the stuff that I think would be useful as videos and or logs. So I'm going to try and put some thought into how to write these up, because I think there's some useful stuff in here. But anyway, I'm gonna raid out. If there's any suggestions for people to raid, I would appreciate them. One Lion, thank you very much for coming hanging out. Hopefully there's been something at least useful today. Deflux, thank you for being here. I do appreciate it when you're around. And, yeah, we raided Bees yesterday, actually. But we might raid him again. White Panther is streaming, but it always brings up clips, and they're always really bad ones. Yeah, let's go see Bees again, because that's where I'm heading anyway. But Bees is very worth a follow. Captain Coda is doing Dungeon Crawler Jam, so but I'm heading to Bees regardless. Maybe a lurking full box. Oh, now I get options. Let's go see Bees. Thank you for coming hanging out. Canny, thank you very much for the gifted sub. Appreciate it. Thank you for the resubs. Thank you for everything, guys. Appreciate you sticking with me even when I sound like this. Yeah, I will be back tomorrow. Hopefully sounding a little better again. And yeah. Take care all. Have a great rest of your day. See you around. Bye.